Welcome, everyone, to our final epilogue session of our Seregen campaign. As always, I'm the Wombat of DM. And with me, we have our 5 characters that have been with us for the past 4 years. Let's let them introduce themselves one last time before we get started.
Oh boy, here we go. I am normally Banewall, but I am currently playing Belzian Gilkis, who is a half-elf monk. Hiya!
And I'm Amatus, and I played Roger Mays, Wood Elf Assassin. Wood Elf Assassin? You all already know the answer to that question.
I played Ulrich Oakenhurst, the human paladin, and then turned into burgeoning vampire. And I've now removed the un from my undead status.
I am Jaeger, and I had the privilege of playing Yarvik, the Halfling Ranger, who has finally come to terms with his rather unhealthy obsession with sausage and ducks and all things pork and meat products in tube form.
I'm Atomic. I play Zippo, the Kobold Sorcerer. Kobold Sorcerer? Maybe.
And welcome in, everyone, and thanks for joining us. So, we ended the session last time. The group got through into the abyss, fought their way through it to protect the sorcerers, disrupting the gate that was created to allow demons to get through, and ultimately both killed Zippo's former master, stole a demon ship that the master was piloting, and got through the gate before it closed as Orcus and all of his demon horde that had gone through the portal reappeared in the abyss. In the process, as Orcus was reacting to his plans being foiled by the group, he crushed the queen of vampires, Cordelia, in his fist, and then disappeared as the party passed through the gate. So that's kind of where the party is right now, and I'd like to take the time to kind of describe the scene that is unfolded in front of them. We've kind of briefly passed over it as we ended the session last time. So group, what you see is a field of carnage. Any of the demons that were slain did not get taken back to the abyss, so there is quite a few mounds of dead demons all throughout the battlefield. Some have obviously been trampled upon by other demons clambering to get to the front lines, but mainly they're mounded around the circle of where the barbarians were kind of fortified. Why did the Twitch category not fix itself is my question, because I did fix it in OBS, so that is interesting. Let me fix that in stream then. Thank you, Raz. Yeah, everything's correct on my end. I'm gonna message him to try refresh. How about you folks, the party? Can you see the correct stuff? The category and the title?
Yeah, it says Seregen, and you're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I think he just, because he was in the last stream, probably it didn't refresh for him. Okay. Oh, and now it has done something. Interesting. Okay. Well, in any case, yeah, it looks like it's good now. All right, so I assume at this point, Amethyst, you're gonna kind of bring the demon ship down to the circle, or like what would your first kind of instinct be with when it comes to sailing out of the gate?
Yeah, so we can see that all the demons appear to be either dead or not here.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, let's bring the ship down to where the survivors are.
Okay. Okay, so bringing the ship down, you see that there is more than just dead demons. Of course, there's quite a few casualties from the battle. Um, in fact, in the state of things, I don't think most of you noticed this, but Rift is pretty heavily injured. You were able to, Roger, give Rift, a potion of healing earlier before the battle was fully occupied, but he had already injured himself quite a bit beforehand, so that was a glad heal. But he looks to be in not great shape. His wings appear to be fairly injured, which might explain why he didn't fly around at all during his time in the abyss. But also, because he was trying to keep a low profile, of course. So there are people healing him. There is quite a few people of both the elves, your group of humans, and the barbarian clans that are all injured or dead in some way, shape, or form. No one party is unscathed. From there, we won't need to take too many actions in here. Ultimately, people kind of fill each other in on what happened. Marius was killed during the battle. He was in the front lines fighting with his men and was mauled by a demon. However, there are several people that have kind of kept a hold of his body to kind of bring it back to the homelands to, give him a proper burial back at home. Of the clan members, it seems like pretty much most of the clan leadership have survived. Of course, we had one that had died prior to the council meeting, so in the near future, they are likely to decide on a new clan leader. But at this point, you have secured the safety of the realm, and people are kind of licking their wounds, trying to reassemble and regroup and start heading back home and making sure that there's nothing else out there demon-wise or evil effects as they kind of take care of things. So ultimately, let's kind of talk overall what you envision your character doing for the next 3 months. So we'll go through each person and let me know if there's any context you need, because I can definitely fill in some things, and then we can kind of talk through a little bit of that. So we'll go in order. Belzian, would you like to start? What do you see your character like? What is your character's immediate goals now that this campaign has concluded? You've kind of settled that debt, what would be your motivations now?
Belzian would, of course, eventually return to the monastery that he came from, but with a grand new idea that has been eating at him for a little while. Rift said, fast travel, solve it. And Belzian did notice monks can go a little bit faster than some folks with a bit of training. So what if Belzian and the monastery, and anyone who wants to, create some kind of fast travel network in the lands to relay information? A paper that can go around filled with news. A newspaper! Some kind of, subscription-based publication to, jumpstart the economy and also be informative and helpful.
So would
So
this
maybe
be
monks could.
would this be for objects to be transported quickly, for couriers to move from here there quickly, or like how do you envision that?
Like, certainly couriers probably exist already.
Yes, but
uh,
like, are you creating a network for those couriers to be able to deliver intercontinentally and in a quicker fashion, or is it more so you're looking for an object related uh, subscription service?
It would be more of the former that you said there. It'd be something to consolidate the world as we know it. Because getting that information around before and sending the sending spells, it wasn't working that great. Belzian doesn't know much about magic. So we'd repurpose monks to deliver information.
Would you potentially be doing that in the 3 points area, where like you'd set up shop there and then have them kind of deliver messages across the wall barriers?
That would be a great place to put the new UPS headquarters or whatever it's going to be.
Okay, cool. Do you have a name for what you envision that being called?
Ooh, I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
Not the Seregen Postal Service or the Renovar Information Network. I'll come up with something.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Let's go over to Roger.
Well, Roger's got a couple of things to do, I think. The first one is to report back to the Flames. Success on both missions, and the death of Marius.
Sure. So I guess it's time for us to kind of reveal what that second mission was at this point, for the group to know, and also for the audience.
The Roger's second mission was to ensure Ulrich does not make it home from the last mission here. So yeah, that was. I was not sure if I was going to actually be able to carry that out, but I did procure silvered weapons in case I had to fight you about it. Because the Flames did not want a vampire on the throne. But Roger has ensured that Ulrich died a hero.
Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. So, I think first of all, when you do make it back to the Flames, I'm assuming you're using your ship to get there at this point, or
Yeah.
are you going to be handing that ship off to somebody else?
Seregen needs some way to project force better than what it already has, so yeah, we're going to keep the ship.
Mm-hmm.
We can debate the ethics of consuming souls to power the ship at some future time, but Roger is probably going to leave that in the hands of the Flames, or in the hands of the Kingdom, as the case may be.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you sail the ship back with, I assume the rest of the group will probably sail along with you, And I mean, it's going to be able to accommodate quite a few people. So you probably are bringing back Marius's body and maybe
All of the nobles who
all
want
the nobles,
to.
right, and things like that.
Well, Yarvik is going to ask for a stop on the way, so
Okay, perfect.
keep that in mind.
And the other big thing to do is that we need to, before we leave, we need to remind everyone, hey, we have this contract with the rulership of Necrata, who may or may not still be alive or unalive, as the case may be. And we all still need to honor this contract with whoever their successor is. And that means meeting at the Triple Point to set up a diplomatic channel so that we can avoid continent-spanning wars that apparently were the norm 3,000 years ago.
Yeah, so that will be something to definitely be negotiated, and it will probably be outside of the epilogue because that's going to take some time. But you have definitely guaranteed that at least the leadership that was at the battle will be present there and will be making their way there once things have been kind of smoothed over at home, right?
Yeah, and ultimately that's not for us to decide,
Right,
because
exactly.
we're not going to be the rulers here. We were just, our job was to set up that diplomatic channel and get them to that point.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
other than that, once Roger is done with all that, he's going home. He has been adventuring for literal years at this point in character and would like to stop.
Yeah. The elves do report that they have not been able to make contact with the Queen of the Vampires or Maynir in general. Do you inform them of the Queen's destruction at the hands of Orcus?
Yeah, we'll tell them that.
Okay.
That we have good information that the Queen has probably been destroyed by Orcus.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So a few things. When you do get back, Marius is laid to rest. There's quite a big ceremony. The Flames wish to appoint you at a leadership role because of your knowledge and how you handled quite a few different things, but mainly because they feel they can trust you. Would you accept such a role, or are you stalwart on retiring?
They want Roger in a long-term diplomatic role.
They want you in a long-term leadership role within the Flames.
Okay, yeah. If that means not adventuring and mostly sitting around and running a spy network, Roger can manage that.
Yes, that would be more so the thing, the running the spy network.
Yeah, Roger will accept.
Okay. So you were appointed that, and given a few initial kind of informations, such as the machinations of how they've been kind of handling the kingdom since the king was destroyed. But ultimately, it's going to be up to you and other members of the Flames to kind of help to influence where the kingdom goes from here. And that, again, will probably be out of session. That's a question mark as to how that will be accomplished. And because you don't really have much knowledge in terms of the leadership out of character, we can kind of pass over that point and say that you work to assist in affecting the new appointment of leadership for Seregen.
Sure. I am interested in seeing where we're stopping on the way back.
Yeah, we can get to that. Ulrich, I'm going to since I'm going to do something a little bit different for you. So when you faded out of existence and into the ship, there is a certain amount of your being that has remained with the ship. So
Oh, cool.
you as a character are kind of aware of anything that's happening around the ship, but you're not able to communicate. You're just kind of aware of it. That being said, that kind of being is split, and you have been welcomed into some sort of haven by the god of war, Zarek. So, despite you being mostly a vampire, started turning away from Zarek and going into the realm of the dead, you fought and sacrificed to the last breath and have been granted a certain ascendancy because of that from Zarek. So, yep. So you're in his realm, but a part of you remains. The part of you that you sacrificed remains in Seregen. Or it remains in Renovar, excuse me, because you sacrificed your soul to the ship, right? So, yeah, some of it was absorbed, some of it got away. It's likely, and your spirit would know this. It's likely that the reason that you were able to have any of your soul get away from the ship is because of the Deegan clan. Also having sacrificed their souls. Between the 4 or 5 of you, it was enough to power the ship.
Oh, awesome.
I will also say that the dark side of you perishes with the queen. And the realm of vampires has been ripped asunder. Vampires as a whole no longer rule Necrata. Most of them were destroyed in the war because Orcus was there with many of his forces, and he tore Maenir apart. Most of the vampires are gone. The few that joined Orcus remain, and some vampires may have escaped if they had a way to escape Maenir. But most of the exits out of Maenir were blocked off by demons. And Maenir itself, the roof was caved in and broken open. And a majority of Orcus's forces plunged in from above and crushed the city. It is now a great ruin, and the only reason Orcus wasn't in the final battle is because of that sacrifice. The rest of the group will learn of this as things kind of settle, and you all get the feeling that if the vampires did not sign on and pledge their support, the last battle would have been very different because the vampires would likely be forced to join Orcus at that point due to his sheer power, and you would have had more to contend with, more losses in the final battle.
I mean, we probably could have taken Orcus for sure.
So that being said, with Necrata no longer being under the thumb of the vampires, things will begin to change there if a future session ever occurs, or a future campaign. Maenir and the Freehold and the Baronies are all going to take a significant change. Seregen does do an initial reach out to the humans of Freehold and are outright rejected due to the alliance with the vampires during the war. Seems like Freehold is not interested in honoring any previous alliance that the vampires made. So there will need to be some diplomatic efforts there in order for anything to continue. All right. So that is kind of Ulrich's side of the coin there. Any questions there, Ulrich?
If they had an army, we would have reached out to them too.
Yeah. Nope. I don't think I have any questions. I think Ulrich, if some aspect of him remains, might that little bit of aspect might try and negotiate with Zarek about, hey, you know what's great? Conquest. You know what could use some conquest? Necrata. You know who could conquest that? Me. But yeah, that's it.
Sure. And you feel many other kind of voices around you, other presences around you within the ship itself. So any victim of the ship is also kind of stuck here. So there may be other folks within the ship that might be interesting to talk to and spend your days discussing with, or trying to gain dominance over so that you can gain more and more power over the ship, and maybe eventually have some sentience, for sure. Yeah.
Make it a war ship.
You really got to read Alistair Reynolds' Inhibitor series. A big part of that series is a dude who becomes subsumed and consumed and then takes control over. He becomes a living ship. It's Revelation Space. It's really good.
Interesting.
The ship's called the Nostalgia for Infinity. It's a pretty cool series.
So speaking of since you spoke up, Yarvik, what's your initial and continual things that happen after the campaign?
So Yarvik, and on this grand adventure that he's had, so Yarvik's a young man, right? Making his way in the world, and that was the point of all of this. So we talked at the beginning of the onset of this is that Yarvik is not spiritual. So he has magic ability and he casts it, but he thinks of it as a natural thing. So on this journey, Yarvik is kind of seen like the highs and lows of humanity, whatever, in all of its forms. When I say humanity, it's like the royal humanity, the people. And his journey into the other realm, in just seeing what true evil looks like, is really kind of made Yarvik think humanoidity. Yes, exactly. Exactly. Is really kind of made Yarvik kind of think, especially watching his leader and his good buddy kind of like go through this arc from like nobility to, and then like the fall, and then the redemption of self-sacrifice and all that. Yarvik, one, he wants to join his people. He wants to learn more about his people, and through that himself. So the pit stop is going to be to the Halfling clans. And Yarvik is going to bid the group a fond farewell, maybe permanently, maybe not, he doesn't know, but he's going to do two things. He's going to learn about his people, because he was really intrigued when we were there, and he could feel what he would assume is, I guess in this world, the halflings are kind of like fae, or they were fae at some point, so he had wings, right? So he wanted to explore that. And the other side of that is, because he's seen this crazy, all of the things that have influenced from Zippo's journey with his deity and watching Ulrich and his journey and Yarvik's own personal journey with the Deegan clan, he's kind of going to he's going to do one of those kind of like life kind of like realignments, and he's going to join once he figures out what that is. He's going to join or learn more about the 12, and when next you meet Yarvik, he will be a cleric. He's going to explore his spirituality. He's going to hang up the bow, at least for a while. And he's still the same Yarvik, still obsessed with tube form meat products and all that other stuff. But he needs to go on a spiritual journey, so he is going to take up the cloth, and as time progresses, he will be a cleric. I don't know what specific sect yet, what that looks like. It will obviously be a good alignment because Yarvik is not a bad character, but that's the short and medium term journey for Yarvik at the end of this.
All right. Well, if Yarvik joins the Halfling clan and is dropped off there by airship, Yarvik will be absolutely welcomed. I assume you're probably going to go with the clan that we initially met with Maturin, the giant turtle with many wood and so on.
That one.
So ultimately, over the next couple months, you learn their ways and kind of get settled in, and are officially inducted as a member of the clan. So now you have a second tattoo, one being a clan of the Bronze and one being a clan of the Halfling. To your thought process, in your studies of the 12, something itches at you that maybe you might want to one day be a member of all 12 clans, and potentially that might be a way to continue your spiritual awakening, because potentially as you learn about the Halfling clan, you feel that the Halflings are certainly kind of aligned with what seems to be Wander. And you wonder if other clans are kind of aligned with other deities out there. So food for thought. And ultimately, as you were inducted to the clan, you also eventually are led to the forest to select a moth. So the process of, and by the way, everyone, your characters will be level 14. You did level up from the end of this campaign. So if you'd like to level up your characters at some point, you're no longer 13, you're 14. So Yarvik, you basically are paired with a moth. And by are paired, I mean you wander the forest until you kind of, through your own kind of magical pull, are kind of, you find a moth or a moth finds you, and you go through kind of a bonding experience with it, and it ends up cocooning on your back until...
Wait, have we been level 13 this whole time?
Say again?
We've been level 13 this whole time?
You have been, yeah.
No.
I've been level 12.
Oh,
Yeah,
12. So you're now 13. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, you're right. You're right. I took it one step and then I took it one step further in my memory, if that makes sense. It's like, yep, they're turning level 13, they're turning level 13, they're turning level 13, and now I'm here, I'm like, okay, they're 13, they're turning 14 now. So, yeah, you're all 13 now.
We are now teenagers.
Yes. So the cocoon on your back eventually sprouts, and you have been granted wings as you have merged with the moth, and you are now officially halfling of the barbarians. You now have flight. Limited.
Sweet. That's awesome. First things Yarvik's going to do is try not to fall off the, he's still Yarvik, so he's going to climb a tree, and, it's like, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this. And then I don't know whether we'll see what happens. But he's gonna have a Yarvik moment up in the tree.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Zippo.
Yeah. Zippo goes, as soon as we finish, everything, goes directly back to Ildren in the Bronze Clan. And once he goes there, he pretty much just spends most of his time, messing with the dragons, collecting different types of creatures that I imagine when he goes back, he's got a place, if not a full apartment house type thing, probably a small piece. He'd probably go for eventually a small little place with a big piece of land on it.
Yeah, you're
So that he
granted,
can have-
granted a place to live, yes.
Yeah, he tries to get as many pretty much as animals of the different varieties that are in Relic. He might go to Seregen every once in a while to try to befriend animals and get them to come with him, and same thing for Necrata. And pretty much he runs his own little menagerie of just pets that he plays with. An occasion he'll take a quest or a job or whatever to go, hey, we got this monster problem. We need somebody to go kill it. And he'll be like, I can do that. Go do that. And that's pretty much his whole life. He'll study with the dragons. His main study with the dragons is how to become one, So, if, in his little house, he's got one room that's just labeled how to become a dragon, and it's just everywhere.
Yeah, so I would say that in Zippo's studies, being that he's favored polymorph quite a bit, he wonders if there's a way to polymorph himself into a magical creature instead of just a beast, and he sends a lot of studies in that way. There have been tales of people who have been able to do that at higher magics. So in your travels, you're also looking for challenges to make you even better. Wishing that there was more adventure left with the group. You also realize that there are quite a bit of mysteries in the Bronze Clan, and that the land that the Bronze Clan is situated in once used to be part of the Giants' land and threshold. As in, these mountains themselves once belonged to the Giants of old, as well as to the northeast of you. The coast is kind of broken off in cliffs along in the map where it says the clans of Relic. It seems that at one point the cliffs and the islands to the northeast of there used to be connected. There used to be a whole landmass that's jutted out and has during the wars was collapsed and destroyed. So there are quite a few artifacts that could be under the ocean there. And maybe something like what you seek may be in there in terms of being able to turn into a dragon. Of course, that would be for another time and another adventure, but it's definitely something that you'd set your sights on for the future.
Heck yeah. I would also let Rift know about the tunnel, the secret tunnel thing we took with the massive person who I assume was a giant in front of I think it was a treasure hoard because I really wanted to grab it. But I would let Rift and them know about that, or Rift and them know about that just in case, something happened that they needed to.
Rift, I think Riff's opinion on that would be one of concern, but then realizing that giant has been in there for however at least 3,000 years. Perhaps it is either stuck there or not able to move, since as you described it, it was sleeping and didn't wake. He can think of no more fitting end to the giant line than to be enslaved in a puzzle room. So he lets it be. You spend a lot of time learning about many of the creatures out in the world, but ultimately, I like what you put out. Belzian, you do start founding your own monastery, one for communication at 3 points. Ultimately, as you start creating structures there with groups of people who are you've kind of invited to assist you in this, you find that there are others that are wishing to build a settlement there as well, especially since leadership is planning on meeting there. It seems like there may be plans to create a unified city under all three lands at this point. It seems to be a point of power, a point of where everybody is kind of, it's a middle ground, right? So you're kind of at the center of that and can.
Oh, and then people can say, we can meet in the middle, and they literally do.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody here have an idea for what that city would be called? All of you kind of have some influence on this, so.
Well, we probably can't go with Cyberpunktopia. There's many ways to go about it.
I think giving it a virtue name, something along the lines of peace, or like armistice, maybe, would be very symbolic of what it's supposed to be representing.
Armistice, you mean?
Yeah, armistice, yes.
Armistice, yeah. Okay.
What is there a concept, and I may have asked this before there was the wall, was there a concept of what this world, like we live on Earth, right? What is this world called?
Renovar.
New Renovar.
We could also do something like Unity. But I'm leaning towards some sort of virtue name, implying that this is a symbol of peace and
Unity's virtue.
All will become one. Ignore this lawful alignment sticking out of my pocket.
I mean, if Unity's on the table, Unreal should be as well, right? Unreal Engine.
Bad.
Ulrich, Zippo, you have any opinions?
I mean, something along the lines of, like, Dragon's Nest or Dragon's Inn would be Zippo's recommendation.
Ooh, what about like Dragon's Peace?
You could also, if you're going the route of let's see here. I'm trying to see what the text was for this. I guess it was Arial, but it doesn't look right when I type. Oh, yeah, it does. Okay. So Unity is one that people came up with. Armistice. Feel free to think on it while we're kind of talking, and if the group comes up with something, that'll be what we name it. Yeah, you're not picking up on Mike Ulrich. You're still muted. You don't have opinion on the name. Okay. Yeah.
New Renovar is my vote.
Let's call it Ulrich's Dead. Then everyone will remember.
Ulrichistan? Yeah, Ulrichistan or Ulrichia.
Ulrichia. Unity's cool. Simple.
Yeah, Unity's cool.
I'll put Unity as the working name.
See how long it took us to come up with a Adventurers Guild name.
We could be here for hours.
For sure.
I think Unity parentheses working name would be really funny if they kept the working name for many years.
Wait, I didn't think about it. We could find something that initializes to something obscene. we need to go back.
I'm sure Unity could work.
I mean, it could community, the community of Unity, right?
The communal Unity municipality.
And then, of course, when trying to,
it's for togetherness, so that we can all come together.
Come together right now.
We'll say stuff like, you can't spell Unity without you.
International Order of Unity, IOU.
I like it. All right, so we'll put Unity down, and we'll see what happens at the beginning of that. Get it. All right, cool. Go ahead. Sorry.
I determined that if Belzian creates a newspaper publication, it would be called The Bronze Habit.
The Bronze Habit?
Yeah,
I love it.
For monks, bronze for the clans, and the dragons, sentiment. Plus, that just sounded nicer than all the weird pun ones I came up with while I was listening.
Yeah, I like it. The Bronze Habit. All right. So, the world now needs to rebuild. And ultimately, each one of you is playing a part in that in some way, shape, or form. Zippo, one thing I will also mention is that Ildren was not immune to the demons. In fact, it was the closest city to the Tear. So it had been under siege for a long while after you had left. So I assume you'd probably also take part in assisting in restoring Ildren. And ultimately that's kind of you kind of help to rebuild where you're going to live, right? Rebuild your home. And you feel like you finally have a home, a place to call home. In fact, many of us kind of either create or find a home based off of this journey, right? I would say in terms of Roger, you're finding a place to finally hang your hat. Belzian, you're creating a new place for you to call home. And then Zippo and Yarvik are kind of immigrating, right? Finding a home based off of a place where you finally feel like you fit and feel completed. And then there's Ulrich, who has found a home in being a ship.
He is his own home.
Yeah. The demon ship itself does not give off the element of evil to anyone. It is fully under your command, Roger, but it does need to be powered, and and ultimately, what you find is that the solution is to hunt down what remains of the demon invasion. For some reason, it seems that there are rumors that some demons, some vampires, some evil entities still remain in Renevar, but for the moment they are in hiding, they are secluded, and these are some of the more powerful presence that for some reason did not get taken back through the gate. Perhaps they found other ways to come into Renevar, or perhaps there's something else afoot, being that planar travel now seems to be capable now that the wall is gone. But ultimately, there is still some sinister things about, and the ship runs just as well on your enemies. So that's kind of what you resolve to do to power the ship when needed. Ultimately, that is the idea for campaign 2 is an airship themed campaign where those remaining evils are hunted down and brought to justice, or brought to destruction, depending on the evil throughout Renevar. So it would be a little bit more episodic when it comes to kind of small adventures in these specific areas, and getting into things like that with some overarching connections and whatnot, but much different than what we've been doing.
Yeah, kind of like Monster of the Week for whatever, X-Files or whatever.
Monster of the Week or Monster of the grouping, right? Yeah. Monster of the chapter. Ultimately, some after effects of this campaign are a race known as Tieflings are now a playable race for campaign 2. Tieflings have begun appearing, whether it be victims of people who were attacked by demons who are now forever changed, or children every once in a while are born as tieflings. It seems like the impact of the demon invasion has affected the world in unreparable ways. And so, or at least as far as you can tell at this point. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
It must suck for those people. The entire world reeling from a demonic invasion, and now there's relatively normal people just tainted by the abyss.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Certainly there'd be no prejudice against them. Will dwarves ever come back?
Probably not.
Most of the vampires are dead, and that was the last of the dwarves as far as we know.
And the act of vampirism isn't really a reversible thing. So, yeah, it seems like unless there are dwarves in other realms and other realities or other areas of the planes, then probably not. All right. So that is kind of the epilogue for the campaign. I like all of your paths that you took in terms of like the after effects. So I will open it up to questions for things, but also to talk about the campaign in general. One thing that I had the group do prior to our epilogue is I had everyone take a survey. So there were questions that the group asked in that survey, some of which I can answer and some of which I cannot. So ultimately, because there is more content that could be discovered. So
It will not.
Or will not, yes. So I know, Jaeger, you asked, would the Deacon brothers have been redeemed? And by that you mean if they hadn't been redeemed in the ship, correct?
Yeah, was there a path in the campaign through which, because they seemed rather bloodthirsty, they really wanted to kill vampires, but they were this form that they were in was ultimately like a punishment. Like,
Right.
was there a path for them other than this to, like, I don't think they could regain their humanity, but to, like, yeah, like, was there a path of redemption for them?
The path of redemption was them sacrificing themselves in the ship, but they would have needed to get to the mentality to be willing to do it, and to have more knowledge about the fact that that sacrifice, or that sacrifice had to be of their own volition. Like, you sticking them into the ship would not have redeemed them. Them
Right.
asking you to did. So they were redeemed in the end through the ship. Eventually, if they had killed enough evil, maybe even in campaign 2, they could have done so in a different way, but not in the confines of this campaign.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I like the end with the Deegan clan. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, you interacted with them enough that I felt it was in character for them to ask, and so you were rewarded that ending, which, by the way, has never happened before with the Deegan brothers.
So the Deegan clan, like, that wasn't something from this campaign. That's another continuing thing.
Correct, yeah.
That's cool.
What's the deal with the polka dot dagger? So the polka dot dagger, if you had rolled a 2, that is the critical for that dagger, meaning that it's not 20, it's 2 instead, and you would have gotten a critical hit on it, where it would have basically done explosive fire damage 3d6. The color.
Oh, god damn it!
Yeah, you just didn't use it enough, so it never happened.
Yeah. I focused on long range.
The color changing hat was just a hat that you had picked up off of a body that was created by Carl, and as with many of Carl's items, they react to when he's nearby. So it changes colors based on when he's close by, because you changed it from purple to green, but otherwise it would just be the mark. So that was just a
It's a novelty.
It was a novelty, but it was also a plot device to kind of connect you to Carl in some way. As you probably all found, all of your trinkets had some sort of plot significance, if minor, or if only to help you in a specific sect of the campaign. So, for example, Amadeus, you had the goblin detector. That was pretty useful for the first dungeon, but not really after that. Zippo, you had the map to Maynir, which ended up not being needed because you found other ways to get to Maynir as well, but it did end up being a plot device in terms of contention with Zictor. Let's see. Belzian, you had the badge, or the insignia of the gnome, which ended up being very plot relative, but could have not if you had made other choices, right? Ulrich, I'm trying to remember what yours was. What was your trinket?
The swans. We had the swans for a bit.
Not the swans. This was like the first session trinket that you got when you rolled your character. I think it was the plans for the rings, wasn't it? It was like,
I thought I found that.
Yeah, that was the trinket that your character picked up in session 0, basically, I think.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and check, but I think that's what it was.
Yeah. I did have the globe as well.
Yeah, the globe you picked up in the thieves' hideout in the woods north of New Pod. Okay, so continuing on, Belzian asked, when we beat up that shadow fellow, 3 ghostly figures appeared. What's up with that? Was it just the 3 brothers or what? So that was basically when the spirit when you killed Gerard, the other two brothers that um, had died basically dragged him away, dragged his spirit away. So ultimately, those three brothers are still in spiritual form in contention. And because he had murdered both of his brothers, they were exacting revenge on his spirit as you killed him. So that's what that was all
Okay.
about. Ulrich asks, "What was Zictor's past?" And a cheeky second question: "Tell me about them planes, bro." So Zictor is a very old vampire. It remains to be seen whether or not he survived the invasion of Orcus. So that could still be learned about him in a future campaign. I can't get too far into it because, there might be some plot devices around that. But it seems like Zictor definitely knew a lot about vampire history and was a dwarf. So it seems to be that some of your theories about him may or may not have been correct. He was at least pretty high up on the chain for him to still be alive, still have agency, and not be stored away with other vampires in the archives. As for the planes, ultimately speaking, what is known about the planes is what is known about the planes. But ultimately, it seems like the planes are now open to and being connected to Renovar, and ultimately, I always have envisioned the planes as other celestial bodies in the sky, which was hinted at with Zippo's orb, showing that Renovar is indeed a planet, and there's an asteroid field around it. There's a solar system in this area, so the astral plane, the recursive pocket, is a sea of stars, and the outer planes are likely to be outside of that, so in other solar systems or other places within the universe. And it seems like there are ways to survive out there in space because we saw that happen with the Gith. And potentially there's more to that.
That's far out, man.
And we know that this ship has interplanar travel, this airship. So, because it survived in both the Abyss as well as Renovar, so who knows where it could go. Anything to add in that, Ulrich?
Not at this juncture when we talk about campaign 2 potentially, maybe.
Okay. Zippo asks, "What happened to the gnome from the store at the start of that where they wanted to overcharge me for the bear statue?" Oh, he died. He drowned in his shop. He would not leave it. He couldn't even pack up everything, so he just hoped that he'd survive and drowned with his items. Magic's magic became magic tragic.
Horrible.
Roger finally asks, "Where would the campaign have gone if the group never broke the wall and just returned the scepter instead?" So ultimately, because you caught Gerard before the wall, ultimately there was a point in time where if the group had maintained possession of the scepter and not given it to Jordan or Zippo, that the group could have turned back and the wall never came down. There are other things afoot in Seregen, some of which are still happening right now and will become part of campaign 2, so I can't talk about that too much, but I will say that some of the minor things have been concluded because time has gone past, so they've concluded for ill or better, right? But ultimately, there are still many mysteries in Seregen yet to be found that have gotten a lot worse than they would have had you encountered them much earlier on, as threat levels continue to increase if not dealt with, right? So ultimately, still formable to level 13 characters. Some of it was hinted at when it came to specific issues that were happening, such as like the mayor's son missing in Jewel, or certain religious figures being missing in Jane. But there is indeed a whole campaign that has been left unexplored because of the choices of the group going to the wall. As I've kind of hinted at a couple times, the campaign kind of stemmed off of two different paths, and it all depended on whether you chose saving the miners or the miner at the very beginning of the campaign. Now, that being said, do they have a chance to intertwine? Absolutely. But ultimately, you didn't get to interact with too much of it because there was a lot of things pulling at you, especially at the beginning.
So my follow-on question to that would be, in the previous iterations of this campaign, has that ever happened?
Everyone has chosen to pursue shadow and ultimately take down the wall.
Okay.
It's the more engaging story path. So, and I'm not going to, try and influence a group one way or the other. Ultimately, it is the big red button is the one that everyone wants to push, right? So, it makes sense.
Well, I think maybe more cynically, it only takes one person in the group being dead set on pushing a button for it to happen, and in a group of five or in a group of 5 or 6 people, you're almost guaranteed to have at least one such person.
And ultimately, that's my intention. I wrote the second campaign and the other events of it because what if the group didn't want to interact with that side of things? I wanted to have a backup, and it became something, right? So ultimately, it's there, but it's also able to be used for other things, right? So, yeah. Okay. So that's answering the questions that I had from you folks. But ultimately, since there have been 5 other campaigns that have played through this, or you are the 5th campaign to have run through this setting, do you have any questions now that things are out in the open? We've already asked a couple about those campaigns.
I think you said that one of the things that you had said, and I'm just kind of interested, we're the only group that didn't choose to engage in direct combat at the tear. Like, we found a way through it.
Yep.
Is your vibe that our group, and my vibe is, of the 5, we're the group that seems to have been we're the most combat averse. Have consistently been the group that will try to avoid huge combat if we can, to find a way to like snake out of it, because we've been very mission oriented like the whole time. Is that your take on how our group approached things?
I will kind of get a little bit more step back than that and say that with every group that has gone through this campaign, every single person in those groups generally already knew each other. The first group already all went to college together. The second group all lived in the same place and knew each other. The third group, I knew one person and they brought all the others. So they had already played together and knew each other. And so on, right? This group, I knew everybody, but none of you knew each other. So in the other groups, since they were role-playing buddies, generally speaking, they'd all have kind of similar ideas as to how to interact with things. So if one person had an idea, they all went with that idea, generally speaking. This group was unique because every single one of you had your own ideas and would debate upon which would be the best idea, which took for sometimes longer decisions, but ultimately came up with much more interesting ones, and meant that this group made a lot of decisions that kept me on my feet and made things very different from other campaigns. You often would think of solutions because you were challenging each other to do so, or because of other decisions you didn't feel prepared to interact with X, Y, or Z, right? Like, for example, no other group left the rocks behind at the border with Necrata. They flew across Necrata and had other issues happen because of it. But because you decided to walk through Necrata, there was a whole new chapter that was unfolded with the Baroness and with Zictor, and even how you went through into Mayanir. That was very different from what other groups have done. And that's just one example of it, right? So ultimately, I wouldn't say that you're combat averse. I would say that you were a lot more thoughtful and more dogged with your decisions than other groups, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's interesting.
Adventure awaits. Carefully.
I think a big thing that contributed to that, in addition to the kind of more like consensus building decision making style that this group had, is that we were explicitly charged with diplomacy fairly early on, and that definitely colored how I approached suggesting solutions to problems. If we had been explicitly charged with violence instead, I probably would have been suggesting much different things.
I mean, for sure, it definitely changed things that you had, the characters that you did too. I would say that your character choices, both from the onset of the campaign and then as it went, definitely affected things too. You were a lot less of the murder hobo type. Two of you were intermingled in governmental affairs, one of you being a noble. And from the very beginning, Shade had mentioned motivations for wanting to be king one day. So ultimately, it was very interesting to kind of see that. Is that correct, Shade? I think from the very beginning, since you were a noble, you mentioned that.
I mean, I have a. I mean, it's now outdated because so much has been added over time. But I had at the time every single possible subclass for every single class for every single species in D&D built, and I effectively just rolled on a table to see who I was going to play for this, knowing that I had two that kind of were in mind, or I had a few actually that would have worked for this campaign. It landed on a dwarf character at the time, which obviously wasn't going to work, but that dwarf character was a paladin of the crown, which was perfect for the background that we got with the Three Prince War. And just below on my spreadsheet is a human paladin of conquest, which also makes perfect sense. So I just went, oh, well, I'll just knock this down. And yeah, I mean, if he's going to be a paladin of conquest and there is effectively a power vacuum, as soon as we lost the king, it was like, okay, there's a power vacuum. This guy's conquest. This is perfect. I want to be king.
Right. Yeah.
I think and it's been 4 years, so I might not be remembering this correctly, but I think I just said, wait, what don't we have in the party already?
I always do the same thing. I always do I'm terrible at role playing, and I always play Rangers just because I like to shoot stuff with a bow. It's my jam. So that's why I've been staying. And it probably, if we do the second campaign, I actually probably wouldn't play Yarvik, because Yarvik is on his journey to be a cleric. So I would actually play something else, which I never do that.
Unless you played that journey of being a cleric and used the campaign as part of that. But yeah, I could see.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible too. It's like if we did like, yeah, we could do that. There was like some kind of a time skip or something like that. And
The campaign would happen 3 years after this one.
oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, then I could play Yarvik as a cleric. Yeah,
Roger would not be joining that.
But you might be the
because-
one the NPC that hires the group and gives them the airship, for example.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roger joins the Adventurers Guild, doesn't adventure anymore, refuses to elaborate.
something about an arrow in the knee. I think I don't know. I heard a story once.
I mean, I believe I've promised exactly 2% of the airship to the Adventurers Guild, if this counts as spoils of the adventure. And they're welcome to go into the fuel chamber and collect it.
I guess that 2% would be Ulrich, right?
Although realistically, this could be Roger going, yeah, I technically owe the Adventurers Guild a couple uses of the airship, so go for it.
I'm just gonna say, if we're talking about proof of stake, Yarvik didn't contribute souls, but Yarvik is responsible for 4 of the souls that were theirs.
Yeah.
Yep. So reviewing what I have for character notes for each of you, the plans for the globe and the connected rings. Ulrich, you were your whatchamacallit, your trinket from the beginning. I was correct.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at future plans that I had noted for each character because I had asked all of you early on what your plans you wanted to accomplish for your characters were. Belzian, you said he wants to find that book and he may pursue magic one day. So that might be something your character future does. But you definitely did find that book. So Roger said wants to get in contact with the Assassin's Guild. Check. Wants to see his family to deliver a package. Kind of check. And wants to root out dissenters. Also check. Let's see. Ulrich wants to confront the mayor with Rita's corpse and Ulrich's head to the Mithril brothers. Wants to investigate Shadow. Wants to figure out if serving the current king is the right thing. Expressed interest in one day being king. Yarvik wants to investigate the wall. Check. Zippo wants to be a powerful sorcerer that is feared. Wants to either rule his tribe or no longer fear them. Wants to go to the other side of the wall. I think at this point, you are that powerful sorcerer, and many people have feared you, including members of the group. You got to the other side of the wall, and I don't think you fear your tribe anymore or have any interest in ruling them. Is that correct?
For sure, yeah. He's definitely not interested in his tribe anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, you've escalated past that. So, some fun stuff there.
I guess if I had any regrets, it's that I took the grappler feat and then didn't grapple anything.
You'll be grappling with that for a while, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're really going to need to come to grips with that.
I took the dual wielding feat early on and then found that like maybe 3/4, 4/5 of the enemies we fought were ones that I wanted not at all to be next to. Wombat fortunately let me respec it. I put that feat into spells instead.
Yeah, I found a few of us needed kind of a small change. Like Zippo, you wanted to change out of one thing to another, so we made that like a whole character arc, right? I think that worked out pretty well. But with you, it seemed to make sense that, you know, your interaction with and being in the homelands of the elves, you'd be able to connect with nature or connect to magic in a different way and pick that up pretty easily. So glad that we were able to make that work. But yeah, I'm always open to kind of redefining characters, or if a character is not working for somebody, I have had many times where people have either killed off or switched to a different character, depending on things. There have been a lot of campaigns where people have died along the journey for that reason, or were happy that their character died so that they could move to another one. So, Ulrich, you're not the first person to die in the campaign, and you're certainly not going to be the last if it ever continues again. It will be a very long time before I run this one again, just because it was 4 years, right? I need some time period, but yeah, some good stuff there.
There's lots of good stuff. I'm happy to have participated.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I've always been really impressed with you folks for the purpose of the engagement in the story and the role playing, and taking it very seriously, but also not seriously enough that it felt like unfun. You know what I mean? And you always kept me on my toes and asked the right questions and interacted with the things I put out there. So it's been great on my end. And it was a real treat. Some of my favorite stuff that I've ever written was stuff that I wrote specifically for this group based on your decisions. So really cool.
I think we should take a minute and just take everybody. We kind of touched on it. What was your? You could just briefly, but I think what was everybody's favorite and least favorite thing that happened? Like, what's a cool moment and what's a like? Oh, this sucks. I'm just curious what everybody thinks about that.
After we knocked the wall down, Piran was very fun and interesting, and possibly a were-tiger of some sort. We don't know. But I was not a fan of the gargoyles,
You wouldn't be. Yeah, that was a shitty experience for your character for sure.
I did have a backup character ready just in case. I mean, I had no doubts.
It was close. It was close.
My fellows would, help me and save me. Thanks for not letting me die, gang.
Yeah. I would say least favorite moment would be, and I may have said something different in the survey, Josh, I can't recall, but not forgetting that I had the means to cure our good NPC friend who also dealt with the dark ones.
Yeah.
Whoops. That kind of whoops. But yeah, that was embarrassing. The council was a lot of fun. I thought Zictor was a great character, and appreciated the killing of the fact that the child, I think, ended up being a vampire. That was kind of fun.
She wasn't.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, what? Oh, right. Sorry. Zictor went and did it, presumably, or got someone to. But
yeah, he
the
ate
child,
both of them. Yeah.
Right. The child being gone. Just all we found was the body of
Gormir.
Gormir. Yeah.
So after he ate Gormir, she ran, and he hunted her down and ate her too. You never found her, but yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot. He did indicate that he handed me some, like my signet ring back.
Yeah, he handed you stuff that he that only she had, right? So yeah.
I can't think of a single time when Roger has suggested a course of action and it was wrong to have done it that way. I can think of several times where I was overruled by the group and bad things happened because of it.
Ground zero.
I mean, I never made choices because they were good ideas. I made choices because they were the interesting idea.
I made choices that Roger would have made in character.
Yes. Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't know if this is clear, but I am super not cool with conquest as a actual concept.
Oh yeah,
For a character, I find
It's
that
awesome.
person probably going to be a pig-headed dumbass who is going to be, maybe because he's a paladin, torn between stuff. So yeah, that's the line I was trying to toe there.
All the characters were great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really enjoyed role playing with you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well played. I got a narrative sense of what each character was about, and that's sometimes hard to do, right? For me to like kind of feel like I knew those characters, it takes a special type of role player to be able to do that, because a lot of times people play either themselves or just are reacting based off of being in a game. You folks tended to commit to your characters and what they would do, and that to me was impressive. So good work.
Huzzah! After the Vargoyle incident, I did have a thought of changing Belzian's motivation to be much more chaotic. He could become like a super greedy, can't take it with you, money grubber, and make horrible decisions. But then I realized that would probably be really annoying for everybody else.
I think I
gotta say, that's
that.
That was one of the things that I think it has to do with, as Josh talked about, the mix of personalities. But I really like that part of the campaign. It's that part where we had to teleport. We were teleporting into and out of that barn that was on fire. And like, if you go back and you listen to that and think about that, like that was like a scene from a movie. And then we all get out of this teleporter and we're all jacked up and on fire and smoking. And then a dragon comes and we gotta put out the fire. Use the dragon breath and blow up the bar. It was such a perfect D&D moment. That was one of the highlights of the campaign. And then for Yarvik on a personal level, where he figured out the temporal lock on the door, I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, I see. It's like, oh, I get what's going on here. It's a temporal lock. Cool. But I also really enjoyed it. Just playing with everybody and just BSing beforehand and stuff like that. It was a really you guys are all like experienced. You guys have all done a lot of D&D campaigns, and I have not, obviously, right? Because I'm still asking questions like, where is this thing? Like, what do I click here? Like all the way to the end. But I thought it was a really good. It's a really good 4 years. That was a good time. It was a lot of fun.
I'd say Roll20 is new to me, and to some extent so is 5th edition. I've played it before, but not in quite so long a campaign. Most of my experiences with older editions of D&D.
Same. This was my first time running a campaign remotely, so thank you for giving me those pains. But it was definitely a challenge on two aspects. One, because I couldn't see any of your reactions, especially since we quickly went to one by one. We lost cameras and so on.
We got shy so fast.
With my laptop.
Yeah. So ultimately, like I still do in some aspects prefer the in-person, just because there is something about seeing how people engage with things and say, okay, this isn't hitting, but this is, let's pursue that. And I feel like I got a pretty good gauge of that throughout the campaign, but ultimately, what I do like about the digital field, and that we streamed it, is that it really upped my game in terms of production value. Instead of hand drawing XYZ thing, I had to like prepare a little bit more, and put a little bit more effort into certain aspects. I couldn't just kind of make things up on the fly in terms of maps. So that was cool to help me grow in that way. But I do miss also being able to kind of come up with drawing maps on the fly and things like that as needed. And as good as Roll20 is, it doesn't really cater to that as well. You can still accomplish it. It's just not as easily accomplished, right? So like there was always to me kind of a balance of what I liked versus didn't like about running it digitally. I also love that I could always go back and listen to a session so that I could write the summaries, or so that I could check and see what I had said or how I described certain things, or what an accent sounded like for a character, so I could be kind of continue it in another campaign session. Especially characters that came back, like in the council meeting, getting Piran's voice right, or the Axe Clan right, in terms of the type of voices. But yeah, it was definitely interesting to run it this way. It definitely allows things like figuring out food for the group, and waiting for people to arrive that got late because of traffic. That still happened because people needed to get home, but it wasn't like they had to travel to my house and we have to leave at a specific time. We would have had to end at like probably 10 every night, if it were in person. So like ultimately, I think this works out pretty well. It's the way it had to be, especially since it was over COVID, right? So, and also because none of us would be playing together if it wasn't digital, because we're all across the world. So
It's
Exactly. The positives outweigh the negatives, in my opinion.
for sure.
It would be a bit of a commute for me. I liked it. I think I'm open to trying a different VTT next campaign. We have three things open at once that we have to log into: Discord and Roll20 and D&D Beyond. And you got to use an add-on to combine the latter two.
Yeah, we'd have to explore that. I know with Roll20 you can put video and stuff on there. It's not as or video and mic. I think it's not as well distributed. And I play in a group, Brent, you know about what I'm talking about, where we have even more. Like there's also Zoom involved, as well as voice, as well as Roll20. So yeah.
Holy smokes.
What the hell is Zoom for if not voice?
What was that?
What the hell is Zoom for if not voice?
Video.
Camera.
But why not?
So he can
Never mind.
easily manipulate where the different cameras are, because you can drag things around. I think you can actually do that in this now. No, you can't. You can't. That's right. Yeah. So you can't organize videos here in Discord, but you can in Zoom. You can move people for wherever you want them to be. So I think that's why. I think we haven't heard from Brent. What was your favorite, least favorite?
I would say my favorite moment. I don't remember what I wrote down, but just thinking on it completely, I want to say it was definitely the fight against the other clan members to get them to, agree to our alliance.
The council
That was
meeting?
pretty fun. Yeah, that one was pretty great. The group also being able to win that was pretty great. Least favorite was definitely involving Magic's Magic, just because I did not like that guy at all. And I'm glad that Carl had the same opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always good to have characters that people love to hate, right? Let's see. Other differences between other campaigns is how you got back to Seregen from the vampires. The Marsupialis, it was a brand new thing that was part of the Malkavia timeline that you all created from scratch. So that has some repercussions to it, but it also allowed you to kind of teleport back to pretty close to Seregen pretty easily. So most groups went from the edge of Maynir, at the edge of the mountains, and traveled up through to Virus, and then up toward Jewel, and found Jewel, in the state. Many of the groups did not also get the Black Dragons to agree to be part of the alliance. So the Black Dragons were basically ejected from the Barbarian lands, and they moved themselves into the swamps around Jewel and Virus and Licht, and settled there. So the Black Dragon clan actually takes over Jewel, and the party would encounter that if they ever went back to Jewel. So that was very different in this campaign than others. There's only one other campaign that tamed the Black Dragons as well. Tamed is not the right word, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, that was an interesting departure as well. Most of the groups also activated the giant, and 2 groups had somebody die in that encounter.
By my recollection, we were pretty roughed up when we got there.
Yep.
And we all looked at it and said, "Obvious trap," and kept moving.
I wanted it so bad.
That is the hallmark of our group. Like I said, like whenever we see a thing that's like, it normally would be like, yeah, let's go get it. We're like, that's bait. We're out. Bye.
I wanted it so bad.
I think if we were all at full resources when that happened, y'all probably couldn't have convinced me to go on alone while you pilfered the statue. But at like the midway to end point of the dungeon, after a couple of pretty tough fights, we're like, yeah, do we really want to take another really tough fight?
I think you had time to rest between the previous fight and then, because there was 3 puzzles between then and the giant, but the obvious trap that you folks, read from the page, so it's not like I was hiding it. Kind of, yeah, the group's like, nope. And for good reason. That was a storm giant way over your level. Yeah, you would have had a bad time with him.
Was the cave like tall enough to accommodate that guy if you stood up?
Yes.
I always thought like we were like in a really low.
That chamber
cave.
was much higher, and he would have pursued you too. So he would have broken through to other chambers if you had run.
Oh no!
Which, since the next room was another puzzle room, would not have been great. So.
Yeah, I think that was the one where I missed the first part of the session. I came back, I somehow lost 75 HP in one round or something. It's like, why do I only have 3 HP? I thought it was really funny. Like, what happened?
That was, I think, the gargoyle fight, right? Probably.
No, the gargoyle was different. That was amazing. Somebody
you're
buffed
talking about
Ozzy and
earlier.
Stacy.
Yeah, that's probably the
patient defense.
Oh yeah, patient defense. I think
That was like he dodged like 30 gargoyle attacks in a row or something. It was silly. I think it was a shadow centipede that.
Oh yeah, well there was a shadow centipede, and then there was the mass. It was like a collection of different bones and organs and things that kind of creeped out of the giant remains of a dragon skeleton. So I think it was that, maybe.
Wow.
I also enjoyed whenever I stunlocked the Hydra.
Oh man,
that was great.
That Hydra fight was designed around, you all had just recently leveled up, and there were certain things that you all utilized based off of your level ups to kind of help with that fight. You had just gotten that ability, so it was a really good way to let you shine in that, but also to kind of like feel out the ability. And it was a good fight because there was multiple heads, so even though it was one enemy, it had many attacks and was able to be kind of still a hardship. Yeah, I liked that fight. Combat was definitely one that was a little bit difficult for me when it comes to fifth edition. Some of that being how fifth edition is, and I know we've had this discussion in the past, especially Amethyst and I. But ultimately, um, yeah, I think there was sometimes uh, the combat was a hit or miss as opposed to some of the other areas of the campaign. And figuring that out is always difficult, but it was definitely more difficult when it came to fifth edition. But I think we had fun with it still.
Yeah, I had fun. By difficulty, do you mean like finding a balance to make it challenging but fair, as opposed to being either way too easy or way too hard?
Yeah, both of those things, but also so that it didn't drag over multiple sessions. Because and that's something that's just D&D in general. Combat tends to be longer when it comes to D&D, as opposed to other things. But um, yeah, it's about kind of the balance of all of that that's sometimes difficult for sure.
Yeah, and the balance between combat sessions and role play sessions and the mix thereof.
Mhm.
And I thought that's another thing that I thought was a real strong point is we had excellent opportunities for both. Some serious
Sometimes
heavy
at
role
the same
play,
time, right?
sometimes at the same time, and then we had some sessions that were just hardcore dungeon crawl, so that was cool.
Or Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I think a thing that most people really enjoyed the most is the role playing and the dungeons, based off of the survey. Um, your feedback is noted on dungeons, and I'm glad that you enjoy my dungeons so much. And I'm sorry that there weren't more of them, but based off of the storyline, it's probably understandable why there weren't as many. There were. It's kind of hard to kind of place in dungeons in a large sprawling campaign like this. But I think the ones that were in there made sense. And obviously, as you can kind of tell, the campaign two is kind of based off of that concept of more smaller stories, and most of them revolving around dungeons or small settings like that. So it is definitely something that it's just that this campaign story has a lot more roleplay elements and travel that than there is dungeons, and that's part of the reason why. And sometimes part of the I envisioned that exploration was kind of part of an overarching dungeon of getting through an area. Um, it's just instead of rooms, it was areas of the map, right? And that was kind of the concept of it. You all kind of narratively explored, but it didn't feel like exploration because of that. Ultimately
No,
speaking, there was a lot of problem solving in terms of how to get from point A to point B, and that was the what I envisioned exploration to be, but it was also kind of a puzzle in itself. And as we got later on into the campaign, I kind of tried to minimize the travel as much as a thing, especially with the ending. We ended up getting not having to travel much at all because of the party's ideas, and I fully embraced stuff like that. Right, if there was a resourceful way to get from point A to point B, I was all in for that. So
yeah, I think because I know I find exploration in D&D, in particular 5e, and I guess whatever the new thing is, to just be a bit tedious in general. It's the pillar that's lacking. When it's exploring a dungeon or when it's exploring, like a space that kind of has like zones.
right.
I think that's a lot of fun. I think you absolutely knocked it out of the park. I really appreciated towards the end where we kind of limited the okay. It takes 7 days to get there, and then instead of being okay, we're going to do 7 short rests or 7 long rests.
Right.
That I think helps make it feel a little bit more fluid, and because sometimes travel's just you're looking out the window and scenes are going by, and that's it, and nothing really happens, and that's okay. So
And
really appreciate that.
I generally tried to make sure that if there were things that the party encountered, it was to tell them something about the environment, or B, to get them from point A to point B, right? So like the Elder Tree was an encounter that because of exploration you found, and were able to cross that distance a lot faster. But then there was the problem of when we were in Necrata in the Elven territories, your method of traveling quickly kind of got poo-pooed on by the barbarians, right? So ultimately, that was a whole timing thing. And then we had to kind of go on foot from Aurora to Freehold, or from the Breach to Freehold, and then we were able to pick it back up. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the slower parts of the campaign, and definitely something to take note of. But it did teach us a lot about how awful Necrata was, and it definitely had some stakes. Belson, I know your character almost died because of it, but we definitely had a lot of good stuff in there. It just was also bogged down by travel, right? So I think in the future, having some hits there while also kind of fast forwarding some until the point where there was a issue would have been probably the way to go.
The big thing for me, I think, that made it difficult for us to explore properly was that we were under a pretty tight time constraint, or at least I felt like we were under a pretty tight time constraint from more or less the moment that we stepped into the Axe Clan territory, let's say the session after that, when Ulrich and Zippo got captured,
right?
Until the end of the campaign. So
it was basically two different campaigns. Yeah,
we didn't really have a lot of time to break off and check out something if it was going to take more than about 30 minutes in game time. I had the impression that there were going to be dire consequences to any delay, and so we took as few delays as possible.
And that's what
I'm saying. I think that's why we felt like we were so. I keep saying we were very mission oriented. Mm-hmm. That's why it did feel like Seregen was D&D. Like, hey, cool, we're doing funny D&D stuff. And then when we crossed into Relic, it became a different campaign. It was much more driven. It was much more driven in that way.
Yeah, the stakes became more, right? And I think so. I'm kind of happy about that in one way, because it means that I communicated the stakes well, and that there is a time element to this campaign where things are happening regardless of whether you interact with it or not, right? I kind of talked about that with the Seregen aspects. Some of those things, it's better if you get to them later. Some of those things, it's better if you get to them earlier, and it really depends on what that is. And there's consequences and pluses and minuses to both. So ultimately, I think the party did a great job of threading that needle, but it does kind of that stress over the course of a couple years of, okay, we've got to make sure we're getting from point A to point B because of this reason. It's a good way for the group to self-motivate and railroad themselves instead of me doing it, right? It means that you're very on plot, but it does mean that we don't get into as many hijinks for misadventures and things like that. So yeah, the first part of the campaign is kind of left to your own devices in a sandbox, and the second part is you can still treat it like a sandbox. There's just going to be things that you're going to miss out on, or not be successful in, or be more successful in if you interact with it in that way. So yeah, definitely a good point.
I personally like that. I'm not a murder hobo kind of guy. I'm a very, well, you know me, Josh. I'm kind of a mission oriented. Let's check this box and check the box and check. That's so like that worked for me. I'm not a I see a lot of other campaigns or a lot of how different games work, and that's one of the things post COVID and being able to do this stuff online is you can see how, because the game has exploded due to the ability of people to join online and connect, exactly how we have from around the country, North America, literally North America. It's interesting to see those different flavors of how different groups and how different people approach the game. And I guess maybe some of you guys are more, and maybe you got other campaigns where you've done the murder hobo thing, but I personally just never been that guy, so I'm kind of glad this campaign didn't go that way.
I'm going to express almost the opposite opinion, actually. Not because I was hoping that the party would engage in more chaos, but a big part of like actually exploring is having the time to divert from the main plot, and I feel like we didn't have the time to do that. There was a lot of stuff I would have really liked to go in and take a look at and check out. That we couldn't, because there was a clear and pressing existential threat that we had to, but we're charged with going to go deal with, right? The literal world was weighing on Roger's shoulders, and I could not justify this very very focused, task-oriented character ever diverting from that path if time was really a serious pressure.
No time for fun. We did hit a lot of random landmarks on the way. Like, we still connected a lot of dots.
I think probably one of the ones that you're probably thinking of that you would have liked to explore more is like the capitals of the vampires and Relic were kind of set pieces instead of places to interact with, or like even more of Seregen. Like, we only really interacted with 3 cities within Seregen, Jewel, Jane, and Licht, right? So yeah, I could definitely see where, and I guess Ari, if we're talking about campaign 0, but that doesn't really count, right? So yeah.
And even if you look on the map, right, there's 3-4 cities in the entirety of Relic that are even on our map.
Right. Yeah.
In what, two clan lands? There is an entire nation of peoples and stuff that we didn't get to see at all.
Yeah. Purposefully sometimes, right? Avoiding them because you didn't want to get slowed down in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're like, in character, I can't justify having Roger divert from a task with this urgent.
Right.
But out of character, I'm screaming, "No! I want to go explore the fantastical land."
Right.
I mean, if you look at how well fleshed out Seregen is, like, there's, I mean, like, if we had, the path not taken, if we had not pressed the big red button, it looks like there is a lot to do. We never got to go to the coasts, because I thought that was one of Yarvik's original things, was he wanted to go, he'd never been to the ocean. He wanted to see the ocean. He still hasn't seen the ocean, by the way.
Yeah.
So,
with a long neck preserve, but yeah.
Yeah, we got close.
Seregen has a city named Rift, so we could have gone to Rift either way.
Yeah, but it kind of the less time constraints doesn't necessarily necessitate murder hoboing, or even just chaotic play in general. But not that those are necessarily bad; they're just different styles.
Yeah.
But even without that, it would have been nice to have a little more breathing room to explore, because I really like the flavor of all 3 of the lands, and we only really got to spend time exploring Seregen a little bit and Necrata a little bit,
Right.
And maybe one session of exploring Relic before half the party got kidnapped.
and you did do some in the Bronze Clan lands too, but ultimately, yeah, I see your point. And also, this is why. So when I wrote this campaign and I wrote campaign 2, there's such polar opposites because I recognize that they can't both be the same type of campaign, right? So one is kind of the balance of the other. Um, and ultimately speaking, there's a lot more now that, things have mostly settled and there are, still evils and things to deal with out there. Campaign 2 is about more interacting with the world as presented, or maybe even further than that, right? So, yeah, some of the failings of this campaign are just setups for future interactions with the world.
Oh, I'm going to caution you on the word failing there.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean, though.
I know, but I just want to, I want to celebrate this. I had a really great time because I hate, if I'm being honest, being asked what didn't I like about something. It's, I mean, because I know that they're just waves and elements that are just a matter of taste, and that's the thing that the customer is always right about. It's not that the customer's always right; it's about taste. And if my taste isn't, I think because again, I commented about exploration generally, and part of that is because when I think of, I'll use two examples specifically in media. Lord of the Rings is all about traveling, right?
It's not about exploration.
It's not about exploration, but it is about traveling, and I guess it's so that I get, and that's kind of the point here that I'll make is exploration is cool, traveling is not, and I hate the Lord of the Rings books and the traveling element. I hate that. I hate that in the Lord of the Rings books. I in the movies it's fine because it's just a couple of oh cool, there's a scene of a sweeping vista, and that's the travel. And then we get to the thing that matters, and I love that. And I'm generally a Doctor Who fan, and I mean that's of course about exploring space and time, but is it? Is he really exploring? He's literally just it's just like boom, he's or the Doctor is now in a location. That's my vibe. I also like to go to sleep on airplanes. I do like driving, but I would rather just sleep through my entire flight and be at the place magically.
Let's say what I prefer in real life is not exploring most of the time on foot in places where the only thing that I'm really constrained resource wise is my level of energy. Sure, wandering around in a woods where it's safe to do so, or on a hiking trail or something. Yeah, that's fine. But in a car where resources is money and effort and the actual danger of piloting a 1-ton metal machine around is I'd rather just get from point A to point B. I'm probably going somewhere.
So I am happy to go out for a drive and just kind of pick a destination and find a fun way to do it. I'd rather walk, but I have no trouble just driving about.
I live in the Beltway.
Hey, look, man, I lived in Philly. I ended up in Bar Harbor one day, just pointing the car in a direction and going.
So circling back to things, I do want to kind of talk about our characters. Generally speaking, I have already kind of commented on how much I really enjoyed this group and how you kind of all grew together and in your characters. I also really like how we connected certain storylines together. So, for example, the Roger Ulrich story was always something I was rooting for. I really enjoyed that dynamic back and forth. But I also really liked the Zippo and Jordan interaction, especially earlier on, and then the complexities of that when Jordan left. I really enjoyed how Yarvik engaged with everything in terms of his motivations, and he was very Yarvik centered. Just the same as how Zippo was very Zippo centered in how he interacted with things, but their motivations were very different from each other. Um, One was more food based, one was more power based. Belzian, I really loved how your character kind of always was taking people under his wing, but also kind of like the perfect ambassador for Seregen in a way, right? Like Roger and Ulrich were extreme opposites of each other in terms of how they dealt with things, and then came to the middle consensus most of the time, whereas you were kind of always the best foot forward of the group. Um, so it was just really interesting to see how um, your characters got used to each other, and as you as people got used to each other in playing, and we developed these friendships over the course of, you know, 48 months, right? It's been really fun, and telling those stories alongside of you has been such a great experience. So definitely one of my most memorable campaigns that I've been a part of. So great work for all of you. Um, and I actually want to reveal who the party favorite was in terms of characters. Pretty much everyone voted except for himself for Roger. Roger got the MVP from the group for.
Hey.
So congratulations there.
That makes sense.
Um, a lot of folks were named, but Roger was mentioned by everyone. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, Roger was the head on our shoulders.
Roger was tactics.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and I just thought of two more moments real fast that were pretty memorable for me, especially because it was whenever I was using polymorph in the fun ways. When I polymorphed the bull and then whipped him into the endless abyss drop, that was pretty great. I love that. And then whenever we were fighting that water creature and I polymorphed it also into a cat, and Belzia just booked it off somewhere with it and never came back.
Yep.
That was also pretty great.
I also remember where Zippo blew up the thieves' village in the trees.
Just forgetting ignite the whole thing.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too.
By the
I
way,
really wanted to save all that alchemist's fire.
so you remember the pregnant woman? She was in the trees hiding, so she died in the fire.
Oh, great.
Got him.
Yeah. Now I can reveal
Biggie for
that.
her.
But yeah, it was
Collateral
sad.
damage happens, okay?
Yeah.
You ever catch a riding dragon? That's checking a life box right there.
Ooh. We found a Draco Lich, but it retreated. Do you think we could have taken it? I think we probably could have taken a Draco Lich.
I think one of my favorite favorite fight for me was probably, I really enjoyed the nullifier just before Zictor, and then like the shenanigans that happened after that. Creating the mimic cart and the squart, and Zictor's whole like arc of the campaign was just, I really enjoyed how horrific and very on point for Necrata that all was. Really enjoyed that. Writing in a mimic, it was just, yeah, just describing that was really fun for me.
I really wanted a car follow mule. Those are great.
Yeah, that was fun. And I'm glad that Ulrich, that you really liked the Cordelia interaction. Yeah, that was good. I'm glad you
Her
liked
voice killed me, man. It was all this lead up. And she's a Southern Belle.
it. Yep. Well, I mean, I'm sure we can reminisce more, and you all have been now integrated into the Discord. I know they haven't been very talkative, but feel free to ask the groups questions and things like that, or share your stuff. I think is probably a good way to start talking about things that from the campaign or introducing your characters. Um, I think part of it is a lot of the folks that are in that Discord don't use Discord as much, so if you're putting things in, I'm sure they'll talk to you. But ultimately, welcome to the alumni group that is the Rule of Thirds campaign, and I'm so glad that I could bring you all along and that we finished. That we got through the whole thing and survived it. So, well, for the most part. Sorry, Shade.
That, again,
But
that's exactly the correct course of action for that character.
It was a really great ending, and I'll be surprised. I was surprised. I'll be honest. So my thought process was that Ulrich would have gone unconscious from Cordelia's murder, and then Roger would have shoved him off the edge, and he would have been in the abyss, and would have been a potential enemy in the sequel campaign.
The conquest.
Yeah. So that Ulrich was self-sacrificing and won over domination in the end for that last second was great. I was surprised. So, and it's always nice to be surprised as a DM. So.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before we end our epilogue?
Well, thanks so much, everyone. Josh for putting it together, and the rest of you for being amazing co-players.
Yeah, it was fun. I was in that world for like 4 years. Thanks for sharing your time, everybody.
Yeah, same. This is I never finished a campaign before, so for having this being the campaign that I finished, it was really cool. Everybody was great. Story was great, and now I got to find something to do every other Tuesday, which that kind of sucks. But it was really good.
Yeah, thanks for playing all.
Heck yeah. It was amazing.
Well, folks out there who have been following this campaign for the last 4 years, appreciate you watching, and I know some of you have stuck by us the whole time, so I want to have a special shout out to our guest stars that were part of the council meeting, but then also Queen of Brambles playing the Baroness, and Erasmus playing Wolfgang. Both of all of those guest stars definitely made the campaign even more special, and I'm thankful for it. So thank you everyone for that, and thank you players again for your time and attention, and hopefully we will play again in the future. If not me DMing, then somebody else. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great one.
GG.
GG. Bye.